My name is Ilihia Johnson. I'm the Public Affairs Officer at the Hawaii Tourism Authority, and I'm so happy to be here with all of you today for our Foundational Technical Assistance Workshop and Resource Fair. I'm excited to be serving as your host and moderator with this incredible group of speakers today. So I just wanted to start with a little introduction of our work at the Hawaii Tourism Authority and the reason for our partnership with Kilohana and why we're all here today. Our mission is to strategically manage Hawaii tourism in a sustainable manner that's consistent with our economic goals, cultural values, preservation of natural resources, community desires, and visitor industry needs. To shorten that up, we're here to stabilize, optimize, and realize. Stabilize travel demand to the Hawaiian Islands from the markets where it makes sense. Stabilize travel demand amongst the demographics that make sense. Those folks who have a little bit kenny to come, spend on local businesses, eat at good local restaurants, and enjoy their time here. We're here to optimize the flow of tourism's benefits into our communities by encouraging that shopping local, staying local, encouraging traveling mindfully, right? Being respectful of community customs, being respectful of the rules and the laws, of safety things like that. And then to realize that vision of a regenerative tourism economy, right? To realize a form of tourism that gives back so much more than it takes. So we can hop to the next slide. On the marketing side of our world, we work in a few key markets. 9 out of every 10 visitors that come to see us right now come from the continental United States. And then internationally, we have representation in Canada, in Europe, China, Korea, Japan, and a market we call Oceania, comprising of Aotearoa and Australia. And if we go to the next slide, sorry, my boss just walked in the room. I got to sit up straight now. When we talk about our marketing work, right, there's this whole funnel that we talk about. When we trying to market Hawaii as a visitor destination, there's this funnel. Our work at the Hawaii Tourism Authority is at the wide end, which we call awareness and inspiration. What is Hawaii all about? What are some of the very general things that you could enjoy on a visit to the Hawaiian Islands? That's where we're at that wide end. Once you get on the radar of a visitor who thinks, yeah, you know what, I think I'd like to go there. Then you get into active consideration. Okay, if I was gonna go, what island I going? Where I gonna stay? What I like do? And then you get even further down the funnel. What's the intent? Okay, I'm gonna take on vacation in November to Kauai, and this is what I'm gonna do. And then you get to the end of the funnel, get on the airplane, come. So that's the marketing funnel. We participate mostly at the top end. We engage our industry partners in that second level with active consideration with some of our cooperative marketing programs and things like that. And then once you get down into intent, that's the marketing that you see from the hotels, from the activities, from the attractions that say, come here, do this, discounts during this week, free night if you do this. So that's the marketing funnel. This is the leisure marketing funnel. Varies a little bit sector to sector. But if we go to the next page, this is one important triangle too. Dr. George Kanahele was one of the early pioneers of incorporating Hawaiian values and Hawaiian thought into the way we think about Hawaii's largest industry in tourism. And he had this place, host, guest model where the needs of the place and the needs of the host needed to be in balance with the needs of the guest. When we have a lack of balance, when we think too much about the guest, not enough about the place, we get problems. When we think too much about the guest and not enough about the host, we get problems. So how do we find that balance? it's interesting that those are both triangles because our current marketing campaign, if we go to the next slide, is called The People, the Place, the Hawaiian Islands. Coming out of a series of campaigns that were very much focused on planting the flag for Hawaii's identity as a place, planting the flag for our identity as hosts. The People, the Place, the Hawaiian Islands offers a little more active of an invitation to come, to meet us, to experience what we love about this place. And maybe you're gonna fall in love too and take care of this place a little better. And then when you go home, you're gonna take care of your place a little bit better. So this campaign has ambassadors on the different islands, and your Kauai ambassador is none other than Kainani Kahonaele, musician, teacher, amazing all-around sister. This photo is in a music shop called Hanalei Strings, jam session down there. And I wish I had the spot to show you. I never bring my wire to hook up the sound, kalamai. But our marketing campaign in all of our markets right now features these ambassadors like Kainani. And as it happens, as we're talking right now, if we go to the next slide, Kainani and her daughter are on the road in the continental US, working to educate the travel industry, the travel trade about the special things about the Hawaiian Islands. What's that? Oh, okay. Yes, so the official travel site for the Hawaiian Islands, gohawaii.com, and the official YouTube channel, Go Hawaii, has all the videos from across the islands. So if we go to the next slide, for me, when I think about tourism, I think about the flow of water, right? The $21 billion that visitors spent in the Hawaiian Islands in 2023 is on big flood of water. Are we ready to receive that? Or does it run off and keep going? How do we make sure that we have enough lo'i in cultivation to really make good use of all this water that is coming our way? You can go to the next slide too. And how do we make sure that in the course of that cultivation, we don't forget to take care of the people doing the work? The host, the place, the guest. I'll just close these opening comments with this. When we talk about regenerative tourism, it's all about balancing the economics of tourism with the well-being of our communities and natural resources. I'm gonna break them down one more time though. If we go next slide. If we think about conventional tourism, the tourism that perhaps we all grew up used to, it was extractive in many ways. It prioritized the guest ahead of the host and the place. Why are we gonna do something for our community? Why are we gonna do something for our place if it's a net negative? On the next slide, we're gonna see sustainable tourism, where we take the negative part and we fill them up and we level out the dirt and we come out even, sustainable. We can keep doing it because when we're done, it's back the way it was. But is that even worth doing something? I would posit, and our work at the Hawaii Tourism Authority is moving in this direction, to advocate and build a model of regenerative tourism. That's a net positive for the community, it's a net positive for the environment, it's a net positive for the people. And when you're in that kind of positive environment, there's some positive experience for the guests as well. So that's what we're working towards. That's why we're here today. And I just wanted to share one quick quote. So this is Reverend Akaiko Akana, First Native Hawaiian minister at Kawaiahao Church. 1929, so about 100 years ago. He hoped that as the world's current of travel turned toward Hawaii, that we would be able to show and teach, by example, how to live with each other, not as separate units, but as a harmonious whole. It was a noble vision 100 years ago. if to get there, we start diminishing ourselves in the course of trying to do that, that doesn't work for anybody. So when we think about this move toward regenerative tourism, toward stabilizing, optimizing, and realizing this regenerative tourism model, that's when we can truly show by example how we can do this right. And then my last slide, again, just a reminder that we're going for the positive here. That regenerative tourism is all about making net positive contributions to the people, to the place, to the Hawaiian Islands. I think I overextended my time of introducing this panel. So at this time, I'd like to introduce our panelists here, and I want to thank each of you for making the time to be here. Oh, big my face. Okay. So I'm going to start closest to me. And I'm excited to introduce Jennifer Luck. She's the CEO of Common Ground Kauai, a farm-to-table experience that describes itself as setting the table for that regenerative future we talked about, a passion for food and appreciation for those who feed us. Common Ground seeks to harness the connective power of food to bring people together, to share, connect, and collaborate. Jennifer is committed to driving lasting community impact with more than 20 years of operations experience in budget oversight and operations management, including multi-million-dollar capital projects, multi-stakeholder negotiations, fundraising, and land management. She sits on plenty boards, and she's done plenty cool stuff. So at this time, I will hand it over to you, Jennifer, for your manao. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. It's always a strange phenomenon to hear yourself talked about right in front of you. And I guess I would just want to first thank HTA for bringing us together. It's incredibly wonderful to sit on this panel with everybody here to my left, people that are doing amazing work in the community and have for decades, and really, in my opinion, are kind of the gatekeepers for Kauai and keeping the character of this place well intact despite all the many forces and stressors and challenges that may come our way. So thank you to each of you for the great work that you do. It's so good to be here. So my name's Jennifer. I'm the CEO of Common Ground Kauai. We are kind of in a nutshell, or how we define ourselves really is a regenerative hospitality company. And so for us, that means, and I couldn't have said it any better, is everything that we do, we try not to be extractive, but rather additive to the local community. And that through line, that thread runs through everything that we do. We own and operate a 63-acre campus on the North Shore of Kauai in Kilauea. It was previously home of Guava Kai, and before that, Kilauea Sugar Plantation. So it has a very long history in agricultural use. And so what we've tried to do is honor that past and redefine it a little bit for the future, understanding what the needs of this place are now and how we build a more regenerative future. So for us, that really begins with how we grow our food. We have a regenerative agroforest on our property. It's a couple acres in size. Currently, it's underway of being effectively doubled in size thanks to a USDA Climate Smart Commodities grant. So we have a tropical agroforest, and what that is essentially kind of a food forest. So the way that we grow food is done in a way that's highly sustainable. We're not monocropping, we're not tilling the soil regularly. The way that we plant everything there ensures that there are nitrogen fixtures and all sorts of good stuff going back into the soil to allow everything to grow and to thrive. And then what we grow on site helps to feed, in part, our farm tours that we do. But we never just wanted to grow everything that we serve on our property, whether that be in our farm tours currently or our lei po'o workshop, or in the next 2 years, we're gonna break ground, we hope, January, February for a restaurant, but depending on permits, that may take a little bit longer. But everything that we serve, we wanna source in part from our own farm, but equally important to us is the question of how do we feed money back into the economy of Kauai? How do we help to build, in our very small way, a more resilient economy for Kauai? And so for us, that comes down to, right now anyways, sourcing a significant amount of our produce that we use, that our culinary team uses, from local farms. So everything that we serve on our campus is 100% locally sourced, and that's oil, salt, all of it. Everything that you eat when you're with us and visiting us is 100% locally sourced, and there's an incredible story behind all of those ingredients. We're very grateful to the amazing farmers that we work with on Kauai and their support of what we're doing. And then that desire to, again, help to build a more resilient economy, to feed money, to not extract money from the economy, but to actively feed it back into the economy. It's this idea of like a circular economy, right? Like whatever we can do, we want to reinvest that into the local economy. So that extends beyond just the ingredients that go into the food that we serve. It also includes everything that we feature in our retail store, both online and on-site. So we have a property, we have the farm, we have a commercial kitchen and some event spaces, and we also have a retail site. And all the products that we feature there are also made in Hawaii, and not only are they made in Hawaii, but the entrepreneurs that we work with also source a meaningful amount of their ingredients, not always 100%, and that's okay. But they're committed to sourcing a meaningful amount of their ingredients from Hawaii as well. So we feature a number of products made by, these are shelf-stable products, CPG, consumer packaged goods products, from entrepreneurs around Hawaii that, again, kind of share that ethos of supporting the place that they live and doing things in a regenerative and sustainable way. And then that carries through beyond that, so the produce and the retail and all of those things, and then we even, the way that we think about the events that we put on and the experiences that we feature on our property, we also try to be as mindful as possible that we leave the guests that visit with us, that come and spend time at Common Ground Kauai, not just with an understanding of an appreciation for the beauty of the place, but also an understanding and appreciation for the complexity of this place, for some of the challenges that the people here face day to day. And ultimately, if we do our jobs well, and I do my job well, a sense of reverence for this place. And then I think, because I believe that last quote that you put up that was so perfect, that really Hawaii, in my opinion, is leading the way in so many ways. When you look at the problems that our world faces, the problems that this country faces, the people of Hawaii with a place-based ethos and doing the regenerative work for generations, pre-contact, post-contact, that really, within that system and those systems are the answers for so many of the problems that we see today. So if our small role, and it's a small role, but if our small role in that can be to help impart some of those lessons onto the people that visit with us, then I think on behalf of myself and my team, all of whom are deeply committed to this community, we will feel like we have done our job well. And what we have found is that there's a huge demand and desire for that kind of an experience too. I think that's been one of the most gratifying things. So we're relatively new. We were founded in really the end of 2018, so effectively 2019, and we're very much a startup. So we're like testing and figuring things out as we go. And again, why we appreciate the great support from HTA and other organizations. It has really helped us along our way and allowed us the time to grow slowly and with intention. But one of the most gratifying things I think that we've seen, particularly over the last year and a half and like post-COVID, is that there really genuinely is a strong demand for these types of experiences. And for an experience that is deeper in meaning, that imparts some knowledge, that is fun, and the food's delicious, and all these incredible things, but that people come away feeling connected to the place, more connected to each other. So even during our farm tours, you get a tour of our farm for 45 minutes, and then we share essentially a family meal, and everybody sits together. So it's that idea of connection, which in my mind is really going back to the true meaning of hospitality. When I think of hospitality, I don't often think of hotels and that kind of an experience, which in my mind is very separate. When I think of hospitality, and when it's done well, I think of a fully immersive experience, akin to like staying at somebody's home, where you come away with this really deep understanding of a place, and again, this sense of reverence for a place. So for us, that idea of connection begins around connecting around food, extends to connecting people to each other, and again, ultimately, hoping, what we're always striving to do is to really deeply connect people to place. So that's a little bit about Common Ground and who we are, and excited for the conversation and to answer questions and to share all of our lessons that we've learned along the way, which are many. We've probably made more mistakes than had successes in some ways. So happy to share that, and thank you all for being here today.
Mahalo nui, Jen. I don't know, I got hungry all of a sudden just hearing her talk about the regenerative agriculture and that whole experience. But we're going to keep going down the road. In fact, all the way to the end of the road, as far as you can possibly go, with the introduction of my friend Joel Guy. He's the executive director of the Hanalei Initiative since its inception in 2018 to implement the key components of the āina State Park Master Plan, which Kauai, you should be very proud of yourselves that, you know, it's one of the models that communities across Hawaii look at when considering how communities might better engage in the stewardship of the places special to them. See, I said that as an aside, but that's also in my script. So, okay, I just gotta find my place again. You know, a lifelong resident of Hanalei, Joel has seen firsthand the transformations that occurred on the North Shore for the past 40 years, the new challenges that have arisen as a result. And of course, I think today we're gonna talk about opportunities as well. So, please welcome Joel Guy.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was a beautiful presentation. I could have sat there and listened and talked to you all day, and then Jen, I was like, oh, I just want to talk to you all day. It's truly an honor to sit on this panel. Sue's just been such a great inspiration to me, and I've learned so much from you over the years, and Fred and Chucky Boy, overwhelmed with gratitude to be up here, and thank you all for joining. I don't know how they fit all these people in the room. I don't know if you can see back home, but there's thousands here today, and just wanted to yeah, thank you for the introduction. My name is Joel Guy. I'm the executive director of the Hanalei Initiative. In collaboration with the Hui Maka Ainana o Makana and the Waipa'a Foundation and the Limahuli Gardens and Preserve, we do manage the implementation and then the day-to-day operations of the āina State Park Master Plan. Just a quick high-level overview. Through the last couple of years, we've been able to remove hundreds of cars every day from entering our community through the shuttle system, while reinvesting hundreds of thousands of dollars every month into our community through our partnerships. And I'll get into more details about that later because it's super exciting. We're very grateful for that. But I just want to start with that. And I was hoping if I could use my minutes to kind of share a little bit about where we were before, what happened, and then where we are now and kind of where we want to go. And I'll try to summarize it because it's complex, it's huge, and most of you have probably heard it, so I don't want to waste a lot of your time, but I just wanted to share a little bit about that, if that makes sense. Cool? Cool. So just my background, as mentioned, thank you. I was fortunate enough to have been born and raised in Haiena. You know, back in the 70s when I was a little boy, we spent most of our days on the beach, you know, laying net with guys like John Haumea and Uncle Jerry Mawiki, and you know, as a little haole kid out there, there wasn't many of us, you know, and of the ones that were there, I don't think I saw any of them helping lay net, and so it was really a beautiful childhood to get to spend the time out there when it was so quiet. And then, as we all know, through the 2000s or 90s and 2000s, we saw an increase in the visitor impacts to this area. With the gateway of the Nepali Coast and the āina State Park, you know, Chipper does such a great job of kind of explaining that transition into a time where it became unmanageable, and there was upwards of 3,500 people a day visiting that area. And so the impact to the community that lived there was overwhelming, and I, you know, you got to imagine that the impact to the visitors' experience was also equally as unpleasant, because they were battling with each other for parking, and there was cars up and down the road, and it was just a really unsustainable, you know, and I looked at the pyramid earlier, the triangle, and you know, when you see the place suffering that much, you know the people are suffering, and then the visitors are suffering. So completely out of balance. And the community said, you know, we're gonna make a change, and we're gonna do something about that. And I just wanted to briefly mention, for context, when I mention community, it's clearly the cultural practitioners and the lineal descendants of the place. It's also, you know, the merchant community. You know, there's our partners with HTA and Sue, and then there's the policy leaders. You know, everybody was at the table during that experience. At the time, I was the president of the Hanalei Lahaina Community Association, and so I think our work on the community association, we would go to these meetings every month. I would go, and I think our part was to see how it would impact the community around the park. If you're going to implement a management plan there, we know it's going to have impacts, and how do we address those impacts and try to solve those? At the time, it was a volunteer position. Right now, you know, I'm the ED and I get paid to work all day long on this, but at the time, we were just trying to figure out how that would affect it, and we came up with a great plan. Like I said, it was about The impacts were at about 3,500 a day, and we had come up with a number of about a third of that. So about 900 a day was kind of the goal through this plan. And that would be through adaptive. Some months might be a little more. As long as you were a little less the next month, you could kind of level it out. And the hope was that we would be able to shuttle about half of them in, or as many as we could. And then it was kind of like, great, we got this beautiful plan. PUBR put it together. Everybody, and I'm sure Sue has a lot of input on what I'm saying, and maybe some corrections. Please jump in.
Right.
But then it kind of was like, okay, well, how do we implement it? We got this huge revenue source coming in, this beautiful industry that's just getting hammered by this system that's unsustainable. It's not caring for these people. They come there and they have it looks like nobody cared for them. Like you ask them to come and then you get there and there's nothing to do there's no parking, there's no access. So, and then the floods of 2018 hit. And so we saw the number go from 3,500 a day down to 0. And so for that year, they shut off that area of the community, all except for residential access, and gave the place a time to heal and kind of come back. And it was a beautiful time to be there for the place. Obviously, the people loved it, and the residents were, there was value to that. But at the end of the day, the place really saw a huge benefit. And at that time, we have to constantly, and I always forget, I don't know why I do, but applaud state parks, because state parks had to they had a beautiful relationship with Uncle Chipper and Uncle Presley guys, so there was strong trust there from the state, but they still had to advocate for this plan at the state level with the board and in bureaucracy. And so for Alan Carpenter and those guys, like, man, I can't say enough mahalo to them, because they were able to convince the powers that be to put trust in this community to implement this plan. And so during that flood downtime, they were able to find some money from some other place and put together the parking lot. Our partnership with the County of Kauai allowed them to seed the shuttle system. And I'll just quickly say that we were very grateful for the Carvalho administration, who allocated $1.5 million to start the shuttle. And then there's a transition leadership, and the Kawakami administration said, absolutely, we're all in on this system. And then it was like, hey, who's going to do it? And everybody's kind of like, not it, I don't want to do it. And so I got stuck holding the small straw. We put together a board of a really smart group of people. And we kind of went for it. And I'll just tell you, that first year, we were just burning through money. It was a horrible experience on one regard, right? Just seeing that and having not the strong business mind, it was just painful. But our leadership within our board was like, no, proof of concept. Just get it going. Make sure it's going. That's what the money's there for. We'll figure it out later. And then COVID hit and shut us down. At the time, there was 2 separate systems, and I don't want to get too in the weeds on it, but the state had a management company that was managing the parking, and had a nonprofit. We were managing the shuttle, and then the Hui had a curator agreement for just the Malama āina activities in the park. So there's kind of three agencies there kind of working, and us and the parking lot guys were kind of always at conflict, because we're trying to reduce the cars. Their revenue is based on cars, so it's a tough, you're across the table. And so we kept saying, like, either give them the shuttle or give us the parking lot, and the state said, we'll do neither. We'll give it all to the Hui and let the Hui manage this area, because they are the true stewards and the lineal descendants of the place. And the Hui, having our relationship strong, they said, okay, you guys can handle the access, which is the reservation system online, the revenue collection, the distribution, the partnerships, the Waipaw relationship outside of the park. And that was after COVID. We relaunched a couple years back with that collaborative integrated system, which was really, I think, where the magic happened, because we went from, like I said, kind of burning through dough with the 1.5 million. We also saw some efficiencies made up through this integrated system, and we launched a couple years back, and since then it's been very positive. Like I said, we right now we run about 500 people a day through the shuttle. Like I said, the money, most of that is all. The state does take a little chunk. I think it's $5 per person, but the rest is reinvested entirely into the community through our release agreement with the Waipaw Foundation, the Hui, through their programming and through their staff. They were all based on volunteers previously, and now they have a stable revenue source. That's not a ton, but it's definitely, there's challenges with that as well. We employ about 35 people right now, all full-time, all 401ks, full benefits, PTO, the best health insurance we could get. And it just continues to grow. We just continue to learn and grow. And where we want to go in the future, and then I'll wrap it up, is, we started this collaborative effort years ago, And we still work every day, all day long on this. And it's an amazing job to have grown up in a community and then watching the transitions and now full circle be back a part of that solution and get to work towards it every single day with an amazing team. Our board of directors is amazing, and we all put a lot of time and energy to continue to improve the system. You know, it's definitely not perfect. Those big shuttles are an impact to a community that never saw shuttles before, so I hear that all the time. But you know, when DOA couldn't take kids to school last year because the buses weren't available, we were able to jump right in and take every kid to school out there to school free right away. Like it's just, there's all kinds of, the benefits are amazing, and I'd love to spend all day talking about those. There are literally that long of a list, but I will.
Senator Kochi and our representatives too for funding.
They did a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. The legislature did amazing. Well, those guys, Senator Kochi guys came through in the flood itself. Like they were able to leverage, if you're gonna go through a disaster, have it during legislative session, because they were able to move quick and get that dough out to us right away so they could fix the road. And then leadership to allocate that money for transportation, Lee Steinmans. I mean, Rep. Nakamura and Senator Kochi, yeah, moved mountains for us. But once again, it's those relationships that make that possible, right? When they call Sue and say, how's the guys out there? Sue can say, yeah, up or down, or you know, how all that collaborative effort has truly been the secret to our, to the benefits we're receiving now as a community. Once again, it's still a long way to go, because as you constrict the balloon there, you see places like Lumahai catching cracks, right? And there's no lifeguards there, and we lose life there. There's no bathrooms. You know, there's other lifeguarded beaches that maybe don't have as many people at. So we're constantly trying to work with Sue and work with our messaging to make sure that people go there. I'll just end on saying that, you know, that ability to share with the visitor about the area is so important for us. You know, we're not trying to, sell cheeseburgers or things. Like, we're trying to inform visitors. So we have an onboard messaging that was written by lineal descendants. Kamealoha and Mehana Vaughn guys wrote this beautiful message that's shared on the shuttle every day for every visitor. It's that choke point. They all have to hear that for 20 minutes while they're traveling to the park about, and it's very pointed. It's lovely and it's beautiful, but it's also like clearly outlines some of the benefits and some of the challenges and all about the community. And so everybody gets to hear that. And then we have a face-to-face briefing at the park. We hope to expand that and inspire other groups around the community. People are always like, oh, well, you're different because you have one way in or one way out. And it's like, we all have our unique traits, but there's opportunities for success in all of these communities. So if people are watching this that have a choke, what do they call them, hotspots? Yeah, hotspots. You know, that DMAP, that Destination Management Action Plan, it's kind of a CMAP for us, that Community Management Action Plan, which I don't want to go off the script a little bit, but that's kind of where we went with it, and it's been it's completely possible at other places, and we hope that other people will reach out, and we'd love to share anything we can to help inspire that kind of work at other places. Thank you.
Mahalo nui, Joel. I just wanted to quickly underscore a couple of things there. This work was really pioneering. And very inspirational in just its strength and its comprehensiveness, and the broad buy-in to it. Was that bill signing last year or this year? Last year. So last year, the legislature passed a law that adjusted a few things in the state park system that should make it easier for initiatives like this to take a more active role in managing our state parks. And the governor came down and signed that bill at āina. He doesn't often do that. Most often bill signings are in his office and he'll do maybe 21 times, but he took the time to come out to āina with a lot of the people who worked on this for so long to really recognize and honor and mahalo everyone who brought this initiative together. A lot of that is due to the leadership of Kauai's legislative delegation, Representative Nady Nakamura in particular, who was involved from the get-go. Yeah, and just the strength of Kauai's delegation. So aloha to our Kauai legislative delegation if you're watching this. So you also mentioned the importance of educating visitors. And the person in charge of that when it comes to the island of Kauai is Sue Kanoho, who needs no introduction, but she's getting one anyway. Sue has served for a long time as the head of the Kauai Visitors Bureau. And recently, in a little bit of an organizational shift in recognition of her leadership, she was elevated to managing director of island chapters. And that's a recognition of Sue's leadership and also Kauai's leadership in the realm of destination management and tourism management and the importance of educating visitors so that they can have a positive, safe, happy experience that works for the host, the guest, and the place. She's known as a fierce advocate for Kauai. I think that's accurate, huh?
I think so.
Yeah. She works with countless organizations here on the island and statewide.
That's good.
I'm gonna leave that there and hand it over to Sue. So everyone, please welcome Sue Kanoha.
Aloha, mahalo. Yes, so you guys have been stuck with me for a long time. Sorry to say it's 27 years. 10 years before that at Kauai Economic Development Board. So yeah, I've been around a while. So we are, and a lot of people think I work for the governor, they think I work for the mayor, and actually we're a private nonprofit. I'm a division of the Hawaii Visitors and Convention Bureau, and we are funded by the Hawaii Tourism Authority. And so we always like to start out with that to let people know we are in the community and we work with everybody. And one of my partners is really close is Nolani Bruin in the Office of Economic Development. Michelle Rego's here, and we work very closely with the team to make sure that we're in sync. We check with each other a lot and make sure that we're all on the same page. So, yeah, so we're charged with the marketing of Kauai specifically, but also the management of Kauai. And so I think to Ilihia's point is that we've always had a chance to kind of work with the community. And I was on this āina master plan for 2 years prior to the flood. And so ironically, when we were working on this on weekends and nights, a lot of times, right, that it was kind of above my job description, but it was something that I really was committed to because I thought if we're going to do something together, I want to make sure from the tourism standpoint I could live with what was being said and vice versa, that they could live with what we were doing. And so through really what we were doing through the county, which was the Tourism Strategic Plan, was born DMAP, Destination Management Action Plan. And so the thought is, yes, you can market, but also what's the impact of that, what you're doing and what you're promoting and to that place. And so we really came up with like a sensitive destination list where if we have any of the travel trade coming here, any of the media coming here, we share that list with them and explain to them. It's not that you can't go there. Some places you can't, Lumahai specifically, or Queen's Bath is my pet peeve, as everybody knows. I just personally feel like those places are extremely dangerous, and we had a drowning there in February, which was really hard for the community, a young girl. So it's just, there's places you can enjoy on the island that you can really mostly be safe, and there's just places that you just don't chance them. So those are the couple of places. But then we started really, gathering this list together and then sharing it with people and explaining why it was a hot spot or why it needed sensitive, a sensitive approach to it. And so that's one of the things that I think that DMAP has been able to do for all the islands, not just for Kauai, right? So everybody really went to the community and talked to them and said, what's working, what's not working, what can we do? Right now I'm dealing with, as Ilihia knows, a location that Opaika'a Falls right now. We had a little DOT, Highways Division had to do some extra work to really kind of take care of that area. The road was failing. However, as a result of that, we now have people trying to climb over to get a better picture. So right now we're working on that to see what we can do to keep people safe, still get the picture, but you have to really look at what the impact of that change was to the situation. And so it's a constant thing. It's something that we do every single day. I have to tell you, I get phone calls every single day from different community members saying this is a concern for us. Some things we can handle, some things we'll give to another group to handle. And so I have a great team on Kauai, and I'm very blessed. And we just really work hard with our board of directors and with HVCB. And as those probably just heard, we just had a new CEO start, Dr. Aaron Salah. And so he'll be starting on September 1st and really trying to shift our, to Ilihia's point, is really to shift a little bit more further towards the culture, and then making sure that what we're sharing is pono to the place, to the people, and that's why this new video series that's out is something that we had started as well through DMAP. That was one of the, we came up with our videos, and Chucky was one of the people that we shared with, because the museum, and she'll talk about that in a minute, but we really saw the work that Chucky did at Kauai Museum as a kind of a first stop. So I would say maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, I might not have perhaps recommended that first stop, but he's really made it such a vibrant place now, and it's something that really is kind of the hub, and places where people can learn to do weaving with Uncle Onyo or Leipo'o with a variety of people that we have to work with. So it's really, like Ilihia said, it's inviting people to your home, and that's one thing that we remind everybody, it is our home, and making sure that the experience that they have is something that will be positive for them, but also positive for us, not only economically, but also from the standpoint of being, pono to the honu or to the monk seal, and really trying to help people educate. We just had a wildlife summit as a part of the Destination Management Action Plan, and it was really nice to have all the professionals in the room that really do this on a day in and day out basis, but shared that information. And we had a lot of the visitor industry show up, and they said, oh, could you come and talk to my staff and educate them about what to do with the shear water, or what to do with different, well, nene is the other one, right? It's the nene that we have to deal with. So it's really a constant education on how we can all do things better and adapt to the changes that happen as well. And I think a lot of the places we still have on our list that we don't promote are left for the residents, because not every little nook and cranny really should necessarily be shared with visitors. There's some places that are sacred and special and should remain the way they are. So it's a fine line that we walk, and it's balance is the word that Ilihia used, and that's the word that we use as well, is the balance of promoting and sharing experiences, but also making sure that they're the right experiences and that people walk away with that understanding and respect of the place. Yeah.
We talked about a regenerative agriculture and dining experience that's really helping to reinvest those visitor dollars and that visitor energy into growing agriculture here on Kauai. We heard about a community that, faced with some challenges of unmanaged tourism, took it upon themselves to jump in and manage. We heard from the iconic Sukanoho about the efforts of the Kauai Visitor Bureau, who has been such a fantastic partner as we pivot towards regenerative tourism. And next, we're going to hear from Fred Atkins. Fred is the general manager of Kilohana Plantation, just down the road. I almost turned in there before coming here, but I never like be late. Fred is also a former HTA board member, and we really mahalo you for your service. Fred was there during a lot of that huliao, that time of transformation, as Hawaii reached sort of highest ever visitor numbers, and some of the challenges that are hotspots and pinch points became very challenging for lots of communities. So Fred, mahalo to you. Fred's career in the visitor industry has spanned over 4 decades in food and beverage and hotel operations here on Kauai. His knowledge and expertise in the incentive group market led him to open one of the most successful visitor attractions on the island in Kilohana Plantation. He's been, as I said, on the board of the Hawaii Tourism Authority, also on the board of the Kauai Visitors Bureau. His insight and his firsthand experience has been a real asset, helping not only the visitor industry, but the community at large, both here on Kauai and across the Hawaiian Islands. Everybody, please welcome Fred Atkins.
Thank you very much. I came to Hawaii in the early 70s, in September 1972, for a 2-month vacation. It's been almost 50, I guess over 50 years now, so I guess if I went back, it's been a hell of a vacation. But I started out getting a job about 3 hours after I got off the plane. I had no intention of doing that. I came to watch a friend of mine's home for 2 months. I went to France to surf in Biarritz, and I was 19 years old. Brought my surfboard, but I went to meet his brother. We were going to watch the home, as I mentioned. And I went down to the place called the River Safari, which was an activity company on the Hula River, 10 minutes from the airport. So I got down there, no one was there. I was sitting along the shore there, and I saw Haupu and that beautiful scenery down, and I went, wow, this is Kauai. And a manager came up to me, and he said, what are you doing here? And I said, oh, I'm waiting for a gentleman that's working for his brother. He goes, okay. He said, he'll be in about an hour. Do you want a job? And I said, no, I'm only here for 2 months. I want to surf and enjoy it. He said, well, Charlie's working for his brother. Why don't you work with him? I said no. So that conversation went on for about a half hour, and I got to the fifth no, and he told me, he goes, you really work here. We got a great buffet that we serve, and we got great Hawaiian musicians. And he said, you can use any of the craft after work, and all the primo beer you can drink. And I was like, really? Right? Because then 19, you could drink alcohol on Kauai at the time. But I still said no, and he goes, have you ever crewed on a catamaran? I said no. And I thought, okay, that's it. I have no skills at that. And he goes, I'll teach you. And I said, you're going to pay me to teach me how to crew on a catamaran? I said, when do I start? He said, next week. So that started me in this whole industry. And I worked there for about 5 months. And the manager, the person that owned it, was a general manager of the Kauai Surf Hotel. His name was Glenn Lovejoy. He took a liking to me and said, you have to come work for me in the hotel. I said, no, I've already been here 5 months. I'm going to probably go home around Christmas. He said, well, why don't you just go to college here for a year and work in the hotel industry? And the college was actually at Kauai High. It was a bunch of small buildings. They hadn't built this facility. So I said yes, and I started out in catering, and I worked there from 1973 till 1985. And I spent a year and a half. I left. I went out to the North Shore, opened up the Honolulu Bay Resort as a food and beverage manager. I wanted to try something new, and I wanted to be closer to the waves in Honolulu, to be honest. And so I got a lot of experience in the food and beverage restaurant side. But about a year and a half later, Glenn Lovejoy had gone. He became a vice president in Honolulu. He didn't like Honolulu life. He came back, and he called me and says, I want you to come back and work for me. And I want you to do convention sales and marketing. And I said, I'll think about it. He says, no, I'm going to offer you a deal you can't refuse, salary-wise and position-wise. And so I took it, and it gave me an opportunity to do a lot of traveling on the mainland and meet with a lot of the incentive houses that bring in the convention groups to Hawaii. Kauai Surf was the first resort on the outer islands to build a convention center that was over 400 people. So anyone that was in Honolulu, they couldn't go to an outer island. And so we became very popular, and it gave me a lot of background in the incentive business. And so I worked at that hotel till 1985, and I ended up being the resident manager. And then it closed because a gentleman named Chris Hemmeter bought 2 hotels, a Kauai Surf and Maui Surf, and turned them into 2 Westons. And at that time, Weston approached me, but they wanted me to do pre-opening sales for the incentive market. My son was 11 months old, and I said, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to leave. And I'd had many discussions with Chris Hemmeter, and I didn't like the vision he had for Kauai Surf is a very family-run organization. And what he envisioned, he's an incredible guy, incredible entrepreneur, but his vision was something you'd build in Vegas, not Kauai. It had nothing to do with Hawaiiana. So I left, and that's when I started Kilohana. So that was in 1986, and it was a small operation. The home hadn't been lived in, but I saw the need to utilize the place off property since he was building a new convention banquet hall that could do over 900 people. We had the grounds if I redid Kilohana. So I met with the Wilcox family, speeded up. I have a lease with Gaylord Wilcox, started out with 34 acres. And then over the years it grew up and we expanded. Now we have 138 acres. We own about half of it or a little more than that, and we lease the other land. So we did very well with conventions for many years, and then we had Hurricane Iniki. And I'd been through the hotel side of it with Eva, and I realized things changed after a hurricane, and they really changed after Iniki. The Westin never came back to life. It sat for many years, and then the Marriott took it over, and it was more for timeshare. So I heard on this panel today there may be some people on the Zoom or in the room that maybe want to start a business, get into whether it's the hotel industry, the visitor industry, some thoughts on that. And you really need to know the financial side of it, how to manage people, and so on and so forth. But so we expanded, and when the time came when the Sugar Lands behind us was sold to Steve Case, we were able to lease 75 acres back there. And that was a whole change for us, because I knew if we just kept only the incentive piece of Kilohana, it would not survive. And that's when we really got into what I guess they frame today as either agritourism or ecotourism. So we saw a need for people wanting to do more than just the activities. This is back in 80, about 90, no, it was like 2002 that we started that, about 18, 20 years ago. And we did it by creating a 2.5-mile train excursion. But in the back, we decided to do an agricultural park that showed what is taking the place of sugar. So if you go back there, you're going to see Hawaiian hardwoods. It's all like an experiment. We have North American hardwoods out there, the ipe and mahogany, and about 12 different varieties. We also have 5 families that actually, we gave them plots of land. They work the land. We don't charge them any money. They either sell their produce to us or they sell it at the farmer's market. And as you know, the price at some of the farmer's market nowadays, they can get a much better price there. So whatever works for them, it helps us maintain the grounds. We also do a tour with a train hike lunch, which the visitors really like. And we've also created, my son created a rum safari that actually coincides with Kaua rum. We use their rums exclusively. They came to us a number of years ago and had an idea of making rum. They were one of the first that actually made rum from sugar in Hawaii. And they've gone on to be very successful. They're in 4 international countries now, and they're in a lot of markets, Costco and everything. So we have now at Kilohana a number of places that are on property that actually make local product. We have Kauai Sweet Shop, and they do chocolate caramels and chocolates. They sell them at the airport. They sell them at some of the stores. They got nominated for Mana Up, which is an organization that takes these small companies and shows them how they can diversify and get into the market. And we just recently had one of our cottages in the back renovated by a company called Maui. They do some of the really top lotions you see in all the 5-star hotels, and they're actually making that on property now. We also have Clayworks that does their own pottery on property. They do classes for local kids and visitors' kids or anyone that wants to take a pottery class. They make it and they sell their wares. So we try to give back where we can to the community. I think our biggest employer besides Kilohana would be Luau Kalamaku. And what I'm very proud about Luau Kalamaku is that when NCL came in with 3 ships, they wanted a place to do their luau. It was doing on Maui. It was an hour away. So they came to us, and we helped build the facility. But they went with Nani Marston, who created a story that she wanted to take it beyond a normal luau. And she wanted it to have the entertainers feel like it's their story, and it's a real story. And that opened right after our train operation, and it's been going on now for like 17 years or more. And this summer, we sold out every night, 4 nights a week at 700 people. That creates an incredible amount of jobs, just a luau alone, between the bus drivers, the photographers, people do AV. We have, I don't know exactly, but probably 10 or 12 crafters that come in, and we try to get them to sell as much as they can that is locally made. Not 100%, but it has to have some part of that. And some of it's 100%, the wood carvers and things like that. So that's where we feel like we're giving back in the regenerative side. To touch on the HTA, she's timing me, so what, I got 5 minutes? 10 minutes. Okay. So I was asked by Senator Kochi and Jimmy Dilkioka if I would serve on HTA. And I told him I would commit to 4 years. And I felt that the visitor industry had been very good to me. I needed to give back. And now it's Stephanie Iona, and she's committed or she wouldn't be here today, supporting what you guys are here to learn about. It was a really, really transformative time for HTA. When I first got in there, It was all honestly about butts and beds and how many people, and we got all the numbers they had posted on the screen. Visitor arrivals were up 5%, 8%, 3%. And the whole time I was there, it never was really going down. But the comments from the community and our reports on visitor satisfaction were still pretty high, but resident satisfaction was just, it hit a peak and it was slowly going down. So one of the things I think, as we look back on I ended up being 8 years instead of 4, but was the creation of the 20-25-year master plan. Where are we going and how we're going to get there? And I was asked to be on that committee with some great board members and community people. Some of you may have known Doug Chang. Doug was from Honolulu, and he served on the board as the chair for 4 years. So we also had great people like Kimmy Ewan, who's a planner. And our concept was we need to change the model, and we need to change it in a big way. So if anyone really wants to know what has really been transpired with HTA, you need to go read the 2025-year master plan. And out of that, and Sue touched on it the other day when we were trying to figure out what we're going to do today, she talked about the 4 pillars. And the 4 pillars is a community, and it's the Hawaiian cultural, it's the branding, and it's natural resources. You can't have just one of those pillars to make, you can't have a foundation with one pillar. So the 4 pillars are stakeholders, and they each have equal importance. So the shift that was hard for a lot of people to take is that the pillar with the community needs to be heard and needs to have input, not just told what we're going to do, input. And that was pretty transformative. People like it, but a lot of times these 5-year plans go into a file cabinet, and then, now in the next 6 months, I don't know, they're going to come up with another plan. But this one took root, and it really took root because, again, one of our staffers, Carolyn Anderson and Kimmy Ewan, went beyond that, and they created DMAP, okay? DMAP at the beginning got a lot of pushback from some of our elected officials. But when they heard that the community wanted that, and DMAP has to look at all 4 pillars. Anything you do, even the marketing, how does it affect? Is the cultural being represented properly? Are we looking after our natural resources? And KA is a beautiful example of that. And so all these things are now being put in motion. And today's a very good example. You would have never had this meeting 5 years ago, 4 years ago. That's kind of where I'm coming from. I'd be more than happy to elaborate a little more on any questions that I feel. You're in good hands with HTA, with Stephanie. She is committed, like I did. If you're going to do it 100% or don't do it. So I will, I'll stop now, and hopefully I can add and contribute to this discussion today. Thank you.
Perfect.
Mahalo nui, Fred. You did steal my line there. Fred was a fantastic HTA board member. We really appreciate his service. And following in that tradition of fantastic board members from the island of Kauai, I wanted to introduce and really recognize Stephanie Iona, who's here in the room. She is currently on our HTA board representing this beautiful island of Kauai. Mahalo nui to you for all that you do. Board member Iona's term has really been marked by trying to bring more people into the tent of tourism, really understanding how tourism can help support and help drive the success of agriculture, especially here on Kauai. Fred talked about the work they do at Kilohana Plantation, but certainly that work extends out to all facets of agriculture. So, Auntie Steph, mahalo for being here today. Appreciate you. Okay, we're going to introduce our final panelist here on the panel today. So, the script says, Chucky Boy is larger than life. He is larger than life, but he's not bigger than that picture on the screen. He's the heart of so much that happens here on Kauai as the executive director of the Kauai Museum, which celebrates and shares the history of Kauai with visitors and āina. He's been a resident here on Kauai for well over 30 years. He's a musician, a minister, small business owner, began volunteering at the Kauai Museum more than 8 years ago and took on the role of executive director in 2017. And you cannot talk Kauai, you cannot talk hospitality on Kauai without talking about Chucky Boy. So with that, I'll hand it over to him. Mahalo for joining us today, Chucky Boy Chuck.
Mahalo. Okay, I'm gonna take off my glasses so I can't see you guys. It's easier to talk. But first of all, I really like to thank not only the panel, but the entire community for allowing me to lead the charge at the museum. I also mahalo ke akua because not many people come to this place where every day you can't wait to get to work. You know, Sundays is our day of rest, but I'm looking forward to Monday. It's such a privilege to be there to serve the community. And again, I thank the community really for supporting, and it wasn't always that way. You know, Kauai Museum, why was I there? Why was I put there? Well, I tend to break rules, and my favorite analogy is if my grandfather said, you must go this way, I went the other way. I always did that. And of course, I got scolding all the time. And I don't know why that took place, but at the museum, there's a board that we have to deal with. And the word bureaucracy for me is non-existent in my vocabulary. It's like, what? I need permission. You need permission. So here's what took place. I think I like the analogy of a river. The river is there. Sometimes it needs to be cleaned. It needs to clean it up. And that's what took place at the museum. Everything was there. It just needed to be refreshed. And I was allowed to do that, but the first thing I did was, and I'm going to share it. This is private. I'm going to share this. I moved the founder's portrait. And the first thing our family member said, where's our family portrait? And I said, oh, well, we're cleaning the building. Hang on. But it's true, we were cleaning up the building. And one thing led to another, and here's how it started. We found a bunch of comment sheets that said, where is the Hawaiian stories? This is a true story. And the light went on for me personally. It's like, that's what they want. Okay, that's what they'll get. So we cleaned the river up. Now everything flows really well. So the museum, you start off with pre-contact stories. What was it like back then? What was it like, in the 1400s? So forth and so forth. We fortunately have two little buildings. And the second building is our rice building, and that has all our ethnic cultures there. We put it all there. And our missionary stories above. That's where the painting went. But it belonged there, and it worked because I took the family there to see it, and they went, oh, thank you. I said, yeah, that's your family story right there. But it fit. It was a great fit. And I think the beauty to being at the museum is I really have no agenda there. I really don't. And if they want to throw me under the bus, I'm always ready. I don't want to go get thrown under the bus, but I continue to do the work with a wonderful staff. And at the museum, what really took place was hard. Fred mentioned shift or change. I lost 4 docents in the first 3 months. And here's what happened. They looked at me and they said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "This is all our ali. This is the rulers from the past." They said, "Well, we don't know anything about it." I said, No, that's okay. You continue to tell the stories that you're comfortable with. They go, "No, well, we don't know anything." I said, "No, Mr. Yamamoto, you're great with stars and the universe. Continue to tell that. It's the story of our navigators, our seafarers, how our Hawaiians came here, and so forth." And they were still uncomfortable, so I couldn't retain them. So the shift is always uncomfortable. But we lost really 2 really great docents. But with that, excuse me, we got 2 other great docents. So things have a way of working out. But at the museum, if you haven't been there, we tell the story of free contact into our ethnic cultures. What makes Kauai, Kauai? Everyone. But it started with the Hawaiians, then of course the Chinese, Portuguese, Japanese, and so forth and so forth. Without their stories, we're not Kauai. Right? We honor Ni'ihau also. And I think I want to share this. Last week I was hosting a curator from the Smithsonian, and she says to me at the end, she says, "Chucky, so what school did you go to?" And I said, "UW." And then she says, "Oh, you're a Husky?" And I said, "Well, UW, University of Waianae." She goes, "Oh, where is that?" And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I get asked all the time, what is my qualifications? You know, and so I'm always uncomfortable with that. At the same time, I'm comfortable with what I'm doing. So that just happened. That's why it's fresh in my mind. But Kauai Museum has morphed into a place of a great resource for our community, for our schools, our keiki, KCC, you know, all the haumani here, the students here, or the organizations such as down at Prince Kohio Park or down in Hanalei. They come now to learn Kauai, to learn Ni'ihau. I think whenever you go to visit an island, any moku, you want to know about their moku. And I think we have a lot more to do. But here's the latest thing that we discovered, that we are a great training area for frontliners. I'm talking about our restaurants, our servers, our bartenders, all people out there that serve the community, our surfers and stuff. Share stories of our history, but share important stories. And it makes for great patter, great conversation. So lately we've been training, for example, just did a training session with Keoki's Paradise, the entire staff. You know, what's important when you guys are the frontliners, you know, tell stories about Kauai. Things like that, Timbers and Hyatt, and sharing stories, but they can use that for the visitor. But I think I'm going to stop here. I think because I can go on and on. I can go deeper into the history now, but I'll stop there. But just to say that if you haven't been to Kauai Museum, maybe you should come by because it's your museum. And this is, in closing, we took it to heart what the founders said when they opened the museum back in 1960. Mrs. Juliet Wickman said, she said to the people, "This is your museum and do what you want with it." Boy, that really hit hard here. It's like, okay, you gave me the keys to the kingdom. We're going to do it, and I'm going to represent everybody. You know, but it's important that we acknowledge all those that came before us. But thank you very, very much. Thank you all.
And Ilihi, I'll just say on that, if any resident has not been to the museum, in the last year, you have to go. And really for the staff of, whether it's Kyoki's or hotel or activity or whatever, I really encourage everybody to really take a moment and visit with Chucky and go through the whole museum, because it's just so vibrant. He's got an artist now by the name of Evelyn Ritter. Is that right? Evelyn Ritter, the artist?
Oh, yeah.
Evelyn Ritter, who's done an amazing job with the Ali'i and pictures and things that really weren't there before. So that's one of the...
Okay, I'm going to interrupt. So we just added AR, but not to be confused with AI.
Oh, what is AR?
So when the kids come, we don't have to explain anything. They got their iPhones, and they just click onto the QR codes. And for example, our warriors come out of the paintings chanting, "Iku mo mo." Like the warriors literally come out of the painting.
Very cool.
You can click on to the cloak, and what feathers are used? The birds flying all over on your QR code. That is AR, augmented reality. We also have another one where you click on, and Kaumua Ali'i's, our last Ali'i Aimoku ruling chief, his son is sent at 6 years old to New England to get educated. And the journey coming home, what was it like 16 years later on the first ship in 1820, the Thaddeus, coming back home. So we have that for the kids. And also we have one where the kids, now they got to try and bring the ship on their own after they learn it. So it's really interesting. We got a new techie named Keone Takekawa. And we're really careful, and we do not use AI. It's AR, so, okay? Thank you.
Mahalo nui for that. You know, when we talk about this regenerative model of tourism, when we talk about just a regenerative economy, we never just invent this. This isn't anything new. If you go to places like Kauai Museum, you can see that the way of life on an island was regenerative. And somehow, we jam it up a little bit over the course of history. So how can we return to some of that, right? Kawama kawama hope, how do we look to the past for that inspiration on how to build the systems and organize our community in a way that there's abundance for everybody, that what we do is a net positive for everybody. That's at the core of regenerative tourism and the core of our conversation today, in service of our community. I think we heard from everybody about the importance of prioritizing community in the work that we do. So I have a bunch of questions here. I'm really looking forward to asking them. So maybe we'll start with the broad umbrella. The question is, how does someone create a better and more regenerative experience here on Kauai, and how do you make it profitable? Who wants to jump in first? Maybe,
Fred, you should
go get
take
them,
that.
Sue.
Yeah, I was going to have Fred talk about that. But one thing that I encourage everybody, I've had, one of our DMAP things was we have a lot of photographers on island, and a lot of photographers didn't realize that there's actually a permit process that you have to have a commercial business, and how that really was brought to the front is a lot of illegal photography has been happening on Kauai. So I think before anybody starts a business, you have to say, where are you going to conduct your business? What permits are required? And Fred can talk about that in a minute. But you'd be surprised how many people just start a business and didn't check with anybody and have found out they're illegal. And so that's one of the things with DMAP that we're really focused on, is making sure, one, everybody's being pono to the place and legal. We have surprisingly, a lot of illegal photographers. Nobody should be at the bottom of Wailua Falls shooting any photography. You shouldn't be at the bottom of Wailua Falls at all. It's illegal. So when I see people advertising on Viator that they're going to do a wedding shot down at the bottom of Wailua Falls, they are 100% illegal. So first of all, start with where your business will be conducting business, and is it even allowed? And Fred's been through the permit process and done quite a few activities, so I think he can talk about that.
What, can you repeat it one more time? I know it's broad, but Can you just repeat that question for me?
Sure. So the question was, oh, I gotta find it. Kanoe's so quick with the reorganizing the questions. How about a round of applause for Kanoe and the whole OEV TV and Solutions Pacific team back there making this happen. The question was, how does someone create a better and more regenerative experience here on Kauai, and how do you make it profitable?
Okay, so if someone's starting out and, the visitor industry is so broad, it's not, just hotels anymore. It's into farming, you name it. Almost everybody here touches it one way or the other. They may not realize it. So if you're starting out, and I can kind of give you what we thought the process with Kilohana Plantation, what was it going to be that would sustain us, and hopefully we can grow around that so we have enough income. And for us, it was the incentive market. But we also knew that this home hadn't been lived in for many years, and it was private. They had very small gatherings, but other than that, it was so private that no one really got to go there. And then it became Haleopio, and it was a home for wayward children. And so when we started it, hadn't been lived in for 10 years. But one of the things that we looked at is that if we're going to open this, we wanted to open it up to the community. We want any local that has never been here to feel welcome here, to feel like it's part of the community. It's like their gathering place. And there was so much curiosity because it was so private that we got a tremendous amount of local support right off the bat. And that helped us in our shops, it helped us in the restaurant, and so we never lost sight of that. And but in today, it's much more broad. If you're doing a product, you got to look at, again, I go back to the 4 pillars, because you don't want to do a product just for the visitor. You need a bigger base. Anyone's in the industry right now that has activities, there was a major drop-off in the last 10 days, and it happens every year where it goes from packed to where is everybody. And so you need to create a base, and if you can, whether it's a product or a activity, do one that the local people might enjoy too. And a typical example is the Kauai Rum Safari. It's basically for most visitors, but on weekends, I would say we have more than 40% of local people that want to do it, because they can get 15, 20 people, they can make it private, and they're our biggest promoters. So we felt if the local people enjoyed Kilohana, they're going to tell the visitors. And we still believe in that. I talked to my staff after the pandemic, and I told them, the visitors that are coming here, they've had to have shots, they're paying crazy money for the U-drives and all this. And I said, they can go to 30 other restaurants on the island, and they can go to other luau's. When they come here, aloha is spoken here. And if you do that, you're going to find it's really fun to talk to these visitors, because they all want to talk to a local person. And, if you're a waiter, your tips will be better, because you're showing, true service. And I have about 150 employees, with all the shops, and it's over 300 and something people that work at Kilohana, all locals, right? And it's kind of infectious. You go talk to the entertainers with the show, they come out after and they talk to the visitors, they explain the story. So I would say whatever you do, look at if you're doing an activity, look at the natural resources. How can you make it better? Whatever trail you go on, how can you keep it up, help the state? State's always behind, they have challenges. Let the people know where they are. All our tours, I tell any of our guys, if you make up a story, or if it's a Hawaiian plant and you can't pronounce the name properly and you don't know what it really is, you're not going to be working here. And we have guides that have been here for years, and they're like botanists. And the people on the tours love it, and our guides on the safari, about 3 weeks ago, my son said they've had 750 5-star reviews in a row. It's all about the people. The tour, it's beautiful. They go see the orchards, they go in the valley, they drink some rum, that probably helps. But it's the people that make the tour. And that's what anyone starting a business, you have to have the people. And that's one of the biggest challenges in Hawaii, on the mainland, is getting quality help that wants to stay. And so if you look at all those things, and again, know your finances. And, don't just take the profit during the summer. You got to put money for a rainy day. You know, there's a news forecast, I don't know, we have a bad storm coming. We don't know if it's going to be 30, 40, or it's going to, like it did in the Caribbean, in 2 days it went to a hurricane. So you always have to be ready. No one thought we were going to have a pandemic, and the insurance company did because they took that exclusion out, and so all our insurance, we didn't get a penny, right? So, you know, if you start out great, just keep putting some money away for a rainy day.
Mahalo, Fred. We're going to hop over to Jen now, who wants to chime in on that same question.
Yeah, and thank you, Fred. I think on top of everything Fred just said, which I fully agree with and I think is spot on, there's probably two things I wanted to highlight just from our experience at Common Ground. I think one is wherever you can, and this is also reflective of the example in āina, which I would say is revolutionary in so many ways, the work that you guys are doing out there, but wherever you can, partner locally. So find local partners to help build your business. And for us, maybe that's partnering with local farms. If you're running a tour that goes into natural areas, partner with an organization like Hawaii Land Trust or other stewardship organizations. See how you can partner with them to share some of the profit that you're bringing in and to spread that back out into the local community. Because those partners will do a couple things. They'll be incredibly key in differentiating you from other tours and businesses or products that you're developing. And it also, and this gets to my second point, it also gives you an opportunity for incredible storytelling around what you're doing. So I think that's been pivotal for us, is being able to tell a story not just of what we're doing and our company, but also a broader story of the place and the people that make Kauai, Kauai. So those were kind of just my two add-ons to everything Fred said, which again was just really great. Yeah.
Well, mahalo nui for that. Joel?
Yeah, thank you. I think the key is to have someone like Jen on your staff, first of all. Would be really helpful. But truly, our team is made up of some amazing forecasters and financial kind of, you know, people that understand the economics. And Fred said that as well. So I don't want to discount that because that's so important for any successful business. Our North Star has to be the community. Everything we do has to be for the benefit of the community. And by doing that, we put our arms around the visitor industry and we take care of them. But if you ever go to KA, you can always go in. A resident of the state of Hawaii can come in anytime. No matter how crazy āina gets or Honolulu, you always have a place there. And so we try to make sure that those synergy relationships are kind of our North Stars, make sure that the community is benefited in this relationship. And I think that's, you know, that might be kind of easier said than done for us, but I just think that's a big point that we really try to hang our hat on, is that's, you know, really important.
Well, mahalo for that, Joel. That's a critically important point, that benefit to the community needs to be the North Star, needs to be that guiding star. On that topic, Fred, there's a follow-up for you. I know. Somebody who listens to you very carefully, actually. So previously, I've heard you talk about maintaining certain elements of a business that are important to you. In particular, when you opened the luau at Kilohana, how important it was for you to have an entirely Kauai resident cast for that luau. And so the question is, you know, if you could talk about maintaining your integrity in business, making sure that you stick to your guns, ensuring you protect those values while creating a successful business.
I'll give you a little background. Norwegian Cruise Line had one ship going around Hawaii, and they did extremely well. So within a very short time, they had 3 ships coming to Hawaii. And as I mentioned earlier, they did their luau's on Maui over by McKenna, and it was a long transportation. So they came to me and they said, we want to do a luau on your property because it's 5 minutes from the harbor. And I said, what does that entail? They said, well, we want to build a pavilion behind your restaurant. And I said, no, you can't do that. You're only here 3 days a week, and I'm not going to do that. So we went in long discussions, and then we already had a small pavilion in the back that we were doing luau's for about 200 people. So I walked back there, and I said, I can give you this area. And they said, well, you're going to have to cut down the mango tree. And I said, you know, the mango tree's been there forever, longer than me, and it's going to be there a lot longer than me. I said, a lot of locals got married there, and we're not going to do that. I said, I think we can design a tent around the mango tree. And then they said, okay, well, we're thinking about having Cirque du Soleil come in and do the show. And so I said, what are they planning on doing? And they were going to do some crazy stuff. And they were going to bring all the entertainers in from Honolulu. And I said, no. I said, it has to be all Kauai cast. If you have a director, somebody like that wants to come in, I'm okay with that. But all the dancers, I said, just because it's Honolulu, we have people that go from here to Honolulu because they think the medical's better, and sometimes it is, and people from Honolulu go to San Francisco. But our entertainers can go one-on-one with anybody in Hawaii. I know that, I've seen it. So they said, so that's a deal breaker? And I said, yes. I said, we're doing okay here. You guys are going to put us on a much bigger stage, much bigger level, but I want you to do this. I want you to at least listen to the person I think could write the show. And a disclaimer, she was my girlfriend at the time, okay? So on her own, she went and did it, and that's how Luau Kalamaku was formed. So yeah, sometimes you can't go after the quick buck. It's better to go after what's best for the community, what's best for Kilohana, and we followed the same path as we did from the beginning. What's best for our community, the way I look at it, it's a common phrase, but if the community's happy, the visitors are happy. And that's what's, we kind of stuck to our guns. Then they wanted to buy me out. They said, we want to buy 51% of your company. I said, so you can have total control and I have nothing? You have to buy me 100% out, and I don't think you can come up with the right price. So anyway, I hope that kind of answers the question, because it was a kind of a struggle, but we were doing okay at Kilohana without them. We did much better with them because, we were bringing on our train operation, and, a lot of people thought I was stupid to put millions of dollars into a train. It didn't turn out that way. It turned out quite nice. But the luau's and the trains, luau combinations do help us.
Mahalo nui, Fred. That was great. Kind of in a similar line, I think. Just for context, so on any given day on Kauai, resident population about 74,000. On any given day, there are about 28,000 visitors on island. So you can do the math on that. And those 28,000 visitors on island, on average, spend about $286 each every day. So, that all adds up, right? In the first half of 2024, that was about $1.5 billion in visitor spending on the island of Kauai. So the question is this, and Joel, you touched on it a little bit, so maybe I'll hop to you first. What's your best advice to businesses who want to serve visitors and really capture that spending, but still prioritize Kama'aina? Fred, you talked about it a little bit, but Joel, if you have any kind of specific examples.
Thank you. That's a great question, and we kind of, Hanalei is almost entirely visitor-based economy during prime time. Like Kilauea is now becoming kind of the cool town where residents are going and having coffee shops. Hanalei, we really want to bring back residents into that town, so it's a big effort for us. And during COVID, there was no visitors, so you saw a town that went from 100% to 0. And so the community stepped up and really had to get in there and make sure that we supported our brothers and sisters in this merchant community. When the visitors come back, the challenge is how do they then support the residents, right? And that is a tough one. I made an example the other day. There's a restaurant in Hanalei that's almost impossible to get a table at for a couple months in advance. But the management there, as a resident, if you call, they always have a half a dozen tables available for us. And that's something that maybe not everybody can do. But it's an amazing courtesy that's extended to the resident that we get to utilize. And everybody kind of knows the management, and you can pretty much make a call. I mean, please don't call me if you need a table there, but I didn't name the place, so we're good. But there are there's little systems like that, right? Because it is hard when you come back and now it's busy and they're like, oh, it's gonna be an hour and a half at the back of the line. And you're like, bro, I was there for you when it was really hard, and now we're not there. So it's a challenge to achieve that. I think for our system in Haiena, it's all about resident access to these places where they couldn't normally go, right? We really want to make sure. And then a little bit backing up to their question, I know this is, once again, these are things that are harder to do if profits is your number one objective, but kind of reframing what your definition of success is, right? What is that profit? Our human capital in our community is so important. Our collaboration for when a disaster hits or any kind of those shortcomings, when you work together and you have that kind of a human capital as your measurement of success, it really changes the community to help each other much more than, $10 or whatever that money does, so.
And I think one thing I just share is that what we found out when āina closed is what āina was, what Kalalau, to Hanalei town. So when we closed the area due to the flood, Joel was right, there was nobody going. And in fact, remember we did the Chamber of Commerce trying to, take busloads of people down to go spend money. And that particular community hadn't been working together the way we do maybe in other communities. I know the West Side works with Steph a lot, and Iona down there, and Randy Francisco and others. So everybody kind of has their tight-knit groups in their community. And that one kind of surprised me. And so that I think that really they became a little bit closer as a result of the flood and having to really work together and then make sure that where's the balance again, right, of the town, and then understanding that a lot of people go through to get to āina, which is the Kaua Trail and Ke'e Beach, they would stop on the way or on the way back or both in Hanalei town.
Yeah, and I just want to echo that it's a little bit off topic, but similarly, when you have that if your whole industry is based on visitors and they go away, this tension between the people that love the place with nobody there and the people that are trying to raise their families on this economic model, it becomes fierce. It's really unfortunate. So how do we build systems where there's kind of a win-win for both, right? And I think it's completely possible. It takes kind of out of the box thinking, and it takes people like Sue to make sure that you're sharing ideas with, so you get a true sounding board of what that industry needs, and having those relationships. And what the flood did is it kind of broke down all those walls that had grown over the years of divisiveness between merchants and Hawaiians and Haoles, and it was like everybody's just trying to survive and get us out of the floods. And then those relationships build through that time of disaster. Then as you come back up, everybody's working a little better together. So I don't know, maybe you need like a disaster to be successful. No, but I think building that collaboration has really been it's truly the magic that's happened out there. As it gets busier, you see it getting torn down. As we see little dips in the newspaper, says, oh, the visitor counts are down a little bit. You start seeing those tensions, those people that have everything vested in that, and they're not vested in the community as abroad. They really start to just get really, they get a stronghold on what they have, and they get really scared. And those are genuinely fears that we want to make sure we're addressing as a community, and we want to make sure we help them in those times, so that when something happens for us, they're there to help us. And so I think that collaboration is really huge. If you can come with those systems, we've got a few examples, but I don't need to go into them right now, but there are places where you can find that synergy between community and the visitor industry, and then they both win quickly. Like āina Beach Park doesn't have that, right? It's all visitors. 99.9% over there is visitors. And that's tough for a community that works really hard and wants to go to the beach. When I was a kid, you used to go surround fish over there, and access was easily all the time, and now it's not available to us, right? So but if you could create a system there where you have 30% for residents or whatever for visitors, then there's harmony. They're not battling anymore, because the residents are like, hey, we always got our place to go, and the visitors always got their place to go. So anyway, I don't know how you do that in a business environment, but from a community engagement, we're excited to see that be implemented there as well.
I think that idea of balance, right? And trying to create these synergies and balance is really key to, to ultimately your profitability, to having the support of the community. Nothing is regenerative if it's not positive and beneficial for the community too, right? It's not just about the place and the land, it's the community, the character, the culture of the place. And so for us, I think that idea of balance is key, and I'm sure we're not perfect all the time, but what we always strive to do is of course, like steep Kama āina discounts to make sure that Kama āina can always afford to come to whatever it is that we're offering. But for us, it extends beyond that. I think we try as much as we can to always balance offerings that we know will pull a strong visitor audience, which is great and helps us and helps our bottom line, is key to our profitability and our long-term sustainability. And also do events that are specifically geared to the community, that invite the community into the space so they feel like it's their space as well, which I think is what Kilohana does, and certainly Kauai Museum does. And and something that Sue's such a strong advocate for, but is making sure that the community is in that space and feels welcome there. And so for us, that's creating events that are very low ticket events that are accessible as far as price point goes for the community, and that speak to what the community wants and needs and would be interested in, would be fun for them. And then I think, again, just that idea of partnerships, right? So always making sure that wherever you can, you're partnering with local businesses or local entrepreneurs, helping to support them, to stand them up, to give them an audience and a platform to help tell their stories and to sell their products and to promote them a little bit.
Well, mahalo nui, Jen. I want to shift a little bit. We use the C word community a lot. I want to send it down to the end of the table, Chucky Boy, and talk a little bit about culture. You know, why is it important to incorporate culture, history, and mo'olelo into your business, and how do you do it right?
Well, I think what it does is if we, sharing who we are as a people to our visitors is always a privilege to share. But we always look back to our kupuna. We always take them back to the great model that they were. It was, and what comes to mind, malama āina, aloha āina. But just with that platform, malama āina, it's care for the land, but it's much more than that. It's deeper than that. It's spiritual. But we share the stories of how our kupuna was, for example, your resources out there, picking limu, seaweed, but it's not just gathering. It's making sure that it can regrow, it can replenish itself. So tomorrow you have more seaweed or limu. It's about taking care of the land, taking care of the ocean, our resources, because it takes care of us. I think that's what we really share. It's that word respect. Before it was hard to share that word because they almost thought we kind of scolding them, but it's much easier now. It's driving to our visitors that if you respect the place, it's back to you. Yesterday, I was talking to a visitor, and he said, hey, I did this coming out of the airport, and somebody did this back. And I said, well, that's a good thing. You don't just drive and not look, thank the people, things like that. We share those little tidbits of respecting your surroundings, the environment. And so when it comes to regenerative tourism, I don't even use that in my patter. But when it comes to that, the blueprint is already there. So we share the blueprint of the past. I think that's what we drive, of how to live on island, because the island will take care of us, and with our visitor, if we share to them, and they're really good now. Now, they ask, can we be docents when we come here? How can we volunteer? It's really, it's prevalent now. They share it a lot. They ask a lot about how can we help. That's beautiful. So we got them preserving our paintings and so forth. Come to our courtyard, and we're going to teach you how to preserve our paintings of our ali'i. And then we tell them stories of that, who they are working with. Anyway, stuff like that.
Oh, mahalo nui. I wanted to jump back to that marketing funnel real quick, if we can. Mahalo. Chucky Boy talked about how at one point you would say respect, and it kind of felt like you were scolding the visitor, yeah?
It was like that, yep.
Yeah. Part of our kuleana at HTA, right, when we talk about this marketing funnel, at the broad end, awareness and inspiration, part of our work there and part of the expertise that our global marketing team brings to the table is targeting the invitation to visit the Hawaiian Islands to visitors who are more likely to be receptive to things like Chucky Boy saying, respect the place. part of our work at the top end of that marketing funnel is about targeting those prospective visitors who care about the environment, who care about culture, who are gonna do some homework before they get to the place, who not gonna hike in the place you tell them not to hike, who gonna go to the museum, who gonna learn how to shaka properly before they try and do it wrong. You know, all of that is some of the targeting that our global marketing team does at the top end of that funnel. So by the time they get here, Sue get a little bit less work to do to educate those visitors on the proper way to conduct themselves well here on the island of Kauai. So, you know, Chucky Boy, it's really good to hear that you're feeling that shift in terms of folks understanding what it means to come with respect and being receptive to that message. So you can see kind of the integration of all this stuff, right? And it starts with that invitation at the top end of the funnel, who we make that invitation to, and kind of the flags that we stake in the ground about us and about our place when we make that invitation. And all that rolls down to the kinds of folks who are gonna prioritize going and eating a meal that is 110% Kauai grown over a common ground, who are gonna listen to that mo'olelo on the shuttle when they go ha'ena. Yeah? So mahalo for pulling that up, guys. The tech table, driving them nuts. Hey, pull up this, pull up that. But mahalo you guys for rolling with it. Yeah. Sue, you wanted to chime in?
I was just going to say, because of the Destination Management Action Plan, you'll laugh at this, but it's our first time being able to go to the community and share what we're doing. We actually, for a long time, Ilihia knows this, we were not allowed to really spend money on our island, talking to our people, our community, and that's what DMAP has done. And, you know, you're just talking to the people on the mainland, and that's what your job is, and marketing. And so this shift, you know, malama ku'uahome, malama our home. I mean, you'd be surprised the questions we get asked. I mean, you probably aren't, Ilihia, because you've been with us, but, you know, people are like, well, do you really live on the island? Are you, like, you work there? And I'm like, yes, because they think we're representatives that are in California or in New York or Texas or wherever. And so I think, you know, one of the benefits of Destination Management Action Plan, DMAP, and Patty Ornelas just walked in with Lonnie Kaui from my office, and, you know, one, Patty's very known in the community. I went to go introduce her to people, and they're like, that's my cousin. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to introduce her anymore because she knows everybody. But really having that connection, and then her sharing, going out and really sharing. And all the islands have been doing this. I don't know if anybody saw some of our High Now and KHON pieces just recently, where we're just trying to share some of the highlights of DMAP. And, you know, the funny thing is, Ilihia, people are like, gosh, I didn't know you really cared about that. I didn't know you know, were doing this. I mean, they really didn't know the work that we're doing. And so I really am so grateful for DMAP and having that ability to go back. I mean, I think it gives them a better understanding of what we're doing, number one, but number two, that they realize we aren't about more just to have more. It's really about doing the right thing. And so that has really helped us a lot with the community. And to Fred's point about the resident sentiment survey, that's one of the things we're judged on, by the way, is one of our what they call KPIs, our measurements, and having that, you know, have them understand what we are doing, and then have them, you know, come back at me. I get plenty of phone calls about, you know, really think you should do this or you shouldn't do that, or, you know, one of the challenges that Patty and I were going to try and work on. Well, one of the issues, like, believe it or not, is the honu down in Poipu. And we actually don't promote that. We don't need to, because everybody else is. But I just wanted to point out social media is one of those things that it's a positive and can be a negative. And so, you know, when we have 200 people down at the beach watching the honu haul out to rest, it's almost becoming a problem. And then the lifeguards, you know, are a little bit challenged, because everybody goes up to the lifeguards and says, can you tell me about the honu? Well, they're not there to tell you about the honu. They're there to watch people and make sure they're safe. So, you know, all these things that come together, we have to really shift and transition and see, okay, what can we do now? I mean, this was a unique thing where, you guys all know, but the honu coming out at Poipu Beach, one of the most populated beaches, happened when COVID happened and the pandemic. And so all of a sudden we've got 20, 30, 40, 50 honu, you know, hauling out and resting. And so there's an organization called Malama Ina Honu who now fly. They used to be just on Oahu. They weren't on Kauai that I knew of. And now we have docents and we have people who are, I don't want to say babysitting, but protecting the Honu, because 200 people with Honu, invariably you're going to have some kid that runs up and wants to go sit on the back of the Honu and take a picture, and you're like, no, you can't do that. It's a federal offense. And so for every action, there's a reaction, and so be careful what you wish for, number one. But number two, the issue of how do you manage the numbers of people, right? Because it's a very unique and special experience. I understand that, especially for people that don't live here. But it shouldn't be where we have 500 people at Poipu Beach, because now that's going to be another problem for us to deal with. And so it's that balance thing again of trying to share with people what's working, what's not working. And last thing, I'm just going to say this because this is a pet peeve of mine, is be careful what the pictures you share or the words that you put on social media. It's important because if you don't think that plays, that picture, you don't want 1,000 people. I mean, when we did the Kainani, I specifically said no to Anahola because that particular area is probably not ready for an inundation of people. And so, to Fred's point, I say no a lot too. And it's for the protection of the place. So be careful about where you promote places. And I see in these groups different pictures and people who, by the way, don't live here because they're not going to live with the impact of what they just did. But be mindful about what picture you're sharing, and can it really take 500 people showing up, and go from there. So anyway, social media it's an advantage, but it is also something that can change places quickly too.
Yeah, I just want to kind of add on to that, and what you were talking about a little earlier is the communication is so important. I loved seeing the top of the pyramid because that's where you're starting to kind of build that mindset, and it's, for us, trying to encourage compliance with access into the park is something that was becoming a problem. We had people trying to sneak down the beach, and so how do you do that? And we had so much pressure of people wanting to get a reservation. You have this huge inundation of people trying to buy a pass. So if you bought a reservation, we automatically have an engagement through the internet by emailing you back some of the do's and don'ts that you want to be considerate of, right? We already have a relationship building through the online portal. Then when they get there, our signage is really intentional. I mean, there's nothing there that's not about the place or about our partners or about the importance of this area and the importance of the system. And then there's the onboard messaging that you talked about. So we kind of really have 4 ways to get information to people. It's that online port, it's our signage that's really intentional, it's the it's the onboard messaging, and then at the end there's this face-to-face briefing that happens, and that can be hard to scale because you have different staff and stuff, but primarily we give that to Sherman and everything happens great when Sherman does it. And then just a little follow-up, we also have we survey everybody aggressively, so in our surveys we get seems like a pretty good response, and then we react to that, right? We meet a lot and we make decisions based on the response we get from people. If they're not hearing the onboard messaging, then we need to talk to our subcontractor, Polyad, and make sure they crank, hey, something's happening, this bus isn't sharing the messaging, or, the gate attendants are causing trouble at the gate because they didn't know that you couldn't bring a guest in, or one thing that happened is residents couldn't bring their visiting friends and family into the park. Everybody in the car needed a pass. And that was a real challenge because what happened was right when we opened, some entrepreneur was bringing visitors in his car, right? And he was making $100 a person. So the state said, no, everybody needs a pass now. Well, that's a bummer if you haven't been out there in years and you're trying to bring your visiting sister from Chicago and you get to the gate proud to show them your park, and the gate attendant goes, sorry, you can't come inside. I don't know, we don't, she needs a pass. And you're like, well, I'm not sneaking her in. She looks just like me. We're just, and so, we had to advocate with the state and with Uncle Chipper guys, and we were able to put in place a resident ride-along program where now you can come by our office, show a Hawaii ID, and you can purchase a pass for a visiting friends or family. And that allows that kind of relationship to happen. But that's through that constant communication and improving, the adaptive management side of it. But I guess I just wanted to really appreciate the communication. Just hearing what you're saying helps us because we have a team that kind of came out of the pressure and that need for compliance. We did put somebody on that back door at the park there because it's a little anecdotal. Like some people say there's hundreds going through the beach and some people say there's none. So we pay a staff to be there and monitor that every morning. And you come, if it looks like there's 6 or 7.
Big honking backpack coming on the beach.
Yeah. But if we have 900 coming in the front door and 6 or 7 in the back, like, we want to make sure we take care of those 900. Like, we make sure they're educated, that they do the right thing, they know they have the right information to enjoy their stay and to be safe. We can't spend a ton of money on the 6 guys that are sneaking back. We need to be addressing it, and maybe and as long as you're communicating that to your team, maybe the 20 is too much, right? At that point, you need to put more energy down there, and then maybe it's signage or whatever it is to comply that. But anyway, it's just a constant effort to try and communicate to the visitor, and I just appreciate hearing you share your way of doing it.
Yeah, I like to. I'd like to just write on what Chucky Boy said as a personal testimony. When I came here, I mentioned I worked at the River Safari and I went to the Kauai Surf. There's about 450 employees, and I was the 5th haole to be hired there. Okay, so it was a little interesting. But the 2 entertainers, one was Chubby Mahoy and one was Lovey Apana. And they kind of hanai'd me. And then Fred Aki Sr., Percy Kina Maka, they kind of took me under their wings. One of them taught me how to dive. Freddie would take me to āina. We would go out to Ka, and we would park right under the sign at the very end of the road that said no camping. But there was no one there, and Freddie he knew everybody. Or we parked in āina, and we threw net, and Freddie sang, and it was really an incredible time. But they really, the Hawaiian people have judged me for who I am and not my color of my skin. And that is always stuck with me till today. I've had so much appreciation on the culture, and I was lucky enough to find that culture about Hawaii, not just the beauty, because yes, I'll admit I was a surfer and we were able to surf places when no one was surfing and all that, but it's a culture that helped shape my business career.
Alessia Sugai, Fred Aki's sister, is in the audience, and she's the one who oversees our Kauai Maid program at the County Office of Economic Development, so to acknowledge her. I see her getting teary-eyed.
Mahalo nui. We're going to go to Jen for her last thoughts on that question, and then we'll wrap up a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I think my thoughts were more specific to the marketing and like how to bring in the right kind of audience, right kind of consumers, clients, whatever it is, depending on what you're selling, the type of product that you're selling. And I think the good news is, and Lisa, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but I think that there's, finding partners that share that same ethos that you do. So Lisa is a founder of a company called Travaris that's solely dedicated to creating regenerative experiences, and they have a broader market that reaches the mainland and beyond that. And so I think it's finding those partners that share your same ethos that can help funnel the right type of visitors and clients and customers your way, that understand and share your value system and can help promote you onto a greater platform. And those, the more of those kind of companies I think that we can partner with that understand Hawaii, are protective of this place like we are, and are kind of, in favor of this like move slow to move fast ethic and approach, which means like moving with intention and being careful and not just about the bottom line, but that triple bottom line, then that helps make all of our jobs easier and ensures that we can get the right kind of visitors and customers through our doors that share again that same value system, and will hear what it is that we're trying to say. So that's
Mahalo nui, Jen. There are lots of great questions that perhaps some of you here in the room texted in, or folks on Zoom sent in. Mahalo nui for all of those. The most popular department of question that we didn't get to, thankfully, we can take care of in the resource fair that's immediately following this panel. Lots of questions about the best way to market your business to visitors or to other businesses within the visitor industry, how to make those connections. One question was about what's the best low-cost opportunity to make those connections. Another, what are the communication channels most effective today to reach visitors? Thankfully, we have some fantastic resources in the resource fair that's going to be just outside of this building. From custom CRM systems to small business administration loans, marketing support, all that good stuff. We're going to have those resources just outside. And I believe our panelists are going to be staying for a little bit to talk story. So if you had any questions for our panelists here in the room, please do stay and ask those questions and talk story. allow me to be the first to thank our panelists. And audience, if you could join me in a round of applause for our amazing panelists today. Jen, Joel, Sue, Fred, Chucky Boy, mahalo nui to all of you. To the team from Kilohana, Solutions Pacific, OEV TV in the back, making this happen. Everyone out in Zoomland who's joining us, mahalo nui to all of you.
And thank you to you, Ilihia, who flew in.
I just wanted to go really quick down the line. If anyone has some really, really short closing thoughts. And maybe we'll start on the far end with Chucky Boy.
Just mahalo. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the only thing I can say, Joel mentioned that some of these businesses are strictly dependent on visitor. I would say they need to rethink their business plan, because I don't know if too many can weather any kind of challenges when you're only dependent on one source of income.
Kauai Visitors Bureau is always here to help, serve, connect resources, and answer questions. And I'm full of opinions, as you all know, that here on Kauai. Always happy to. I've told people that's never going to work. Most of the times I'm right about that. But on the other hand, I just had somebody email me yesterday, and they wanted to do something at Lihui Airport. I said, give me just a subject matter of what it is, and I'll connect you with the right person. So that's what we're here for. That's what we do. And mahalo to Hawaii Tourism Authority for all the work they've put in to our islands and really helping us, and for funding Destination Management Action Plan. I'm just going to say, Nalani and I and our teams at both offices really tried to do stuff, but really the fact is funding the position, full-time position, and having a budget to work with has made all the difference in the world, and I thank you for that.
Yeah, I think we'll just echo Sue's appreciation for HTA for holding this and for just the direction, and then being able to convey that direction so clearly. It really is helpful when you can understand it in a palatable way. So I just appreciate you and the work you do and the whole organization and its ability to, first of all, seems like make a shift, and then to be able to share that shift so clearly has been great. So thank you.
And I think I really just want to say mahalo and thank you for including us in this presentation, and thank you to the HTA for creating these kind of opportunities to tell the story and share a little bit of our mana'o or whatever we can to share to help others along the way. And I want to give a special mahalo to Sue, because I feel like you have, throughout your career, been such an incredible protector of this place, and you've had to walk a hard line at times, and you're not afraid to do that. And I think that all of us have benefited because of that. So just, yes, yeah. So thank you for all your good work. Thanks, everybody.
Mahalo nui to all our panelists. It takes so many hands to get to this really simple model of regenerative tourism, where we're not taking away, we're not accepting the status quo. We're seeking what is positive, we're seeking what is additive, we're seeking what is beneficial for our place, for our people, and ultimately, when we're all doing well, it's a more positive experience for the guests that we host here. So on behalf of myself, my entire team at the Hawaii Tourism Authority, on behalf of our board, our chair, Mufi Hanneman, who sends his aloha, of course, our distinguished Kauai board member, Stephanie Iona, here in the house. So on behalf of all of them, from all of us to all of you, mahalo nui for joining us.